Osho, Yoga, the Alpha and the Omega, Volume 2, Discourses on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, given at the Osho Commune International, Pune, India. Discourse number 2.
First question. What you have been saying about Heraclitus, Christ and Zen seems like kindergarten teachings compared to Patanjali. Heraclitus, Christ and Zen make the final step seem close. Patanjali makes even the first step seem almost impossible. It seems like us Westerners have hardly begun to realize the amount of work that has to be done. Says Lao Tse, if Tao is not laughed at, it will not be Tao. And I would like to say to you, if you will not misunderstand me, you will not be you. You are bound to misunderstand. You have not understood what I have been saying about Heraclitus, Christ and Zen. And if you cannot understand Heraclitus, Zen and Jesus, you will not be able to understand Patanjali also. The first rule of understanding is not to compare. How can you compare? What do you know about the innermost state of Heraclitus, or Baso, or Buddha, Jesus, or Patanjali? Who are you to compare? Because comparison is a judgment. Who are you to judge? But the mind wants to judge. Because in judgment the mind feels superior. You become the judge. Your ego feels very, very good. You feed the ego. Through judgment and comparison, you think that you know. There are different types of flowers, incomparable. How can you compare a rose with lotus? Is there any possibility to compare? There is no possibility because both are different worlds. How can you compare moon with the sun? There is no possibility. They are different dimensions. Heraclitus is a wild flower. Patanjali is in a cultivated garden. Patanjali will be nearer your intellect. Heraclitus nearer your heart. But as you go deeper, the differences are lost. When you yourself start flowering, then a new understanding dawns upon you. The understanding that flowers differ in their color, they differ in their smell, they differ in their shape, form, name, but in flowering, they don't differ. The flowering, the phenomena that they have flowered, is the same. Heraclitus is of course different. Has to be. Every individual is unique. Patanjali is different. You cannot put them into one category. There exist no pigeonholes where you can force them, categorize them. But if you also flower, then you will come to understand that flowering is the same whether the flower is lotus or rose, makes no difference. The innermost phenomena of energy coming to a celebration is the same. They talk differently. They have different patterns of mind. Patanjali is a scientific thinker. He is a grammarian, a linguist. Heraclitus is a wild poet. He does not bother about grammar and language and the form. And when you say that listening to Patanjali, you feel that Heraclitus and Baso and Zen, they appear childish, kindergarten teachings. You are not saying anything about Patanjali or Heraclitus, you are saying something about you. You are saying that you are a mind-oriented person. Patanjali you can understand, Heraclitus simply eludes you. Patanjali is more solid. You can have a grip. Heraclitus is a cloud. You could not have any grip on him. Patanjali, you can make tail and head out of him. Seems rational. What you will do with a Heraclitus, with a Baso? No, simply they are so irrational. Thinking about them, your mind becomes absolutely impotent. When you say such things, comparisons, judgments, you say something about you, that who you are. Patanjali can be understood. There is no trouble about it. He is absolutely rational, can be followed, no problem about it. All his techniques can be done because he gives you the how. And how is always easy to understand. What to do, how to do, he gives you the techniques. Ask Baso or Heraclitus what to do, and they simply say there is nothing to be done. Then you are at a loss. If something is to be done, you can do it. But if nothing is to be done, you are at a loss. Still you will go on asking again and again what to do, how to achieve this you are talking about. They talk about the ultimate without talking about the way that leads to it. Patanjali talks about the way, never talking about the goal. Patanjali is concerned with the means, Heraclitus with the end. The end is mysterious. It is a poetry. It is not a mathematical solution. It is a mystery. But the path is a scientific thing, the technique, the know-how. It appeals you. But this shows something about you, not about Heraclitus or Patanjali. You are a mind-oriented person, a head-oriented person. Try to see this. Don't compare Patanjali and Heraclitus. Simply try to see the thing, that it shows something about you. And if it shows something about you, you can do something. Don't think that you know what Patanjali is and what Heraclitus is. You can't even understand an ordinary flower in the garden, and they are the ultimate flowering in existence. Unless you flower in the same way, you will not be able to understand. But you can compare. You can judge. And through judgment you will miss the whole point. So the first rule of understanding is never to judge. Never judge and never compare Buddha, Mahavir, Muhammad, Christ, Krishna. Never compare. They exist in a dimension beyond comparison. And whatsoever you know about them is really nothing. Just fragments. You cannot have the total comprehension. They are so beyond. In fact, you simply see their reflection in the water of your mind. You have not seen the moon. You have seen the moon in the lake. You have not seen the reality. You have simply seen a mirror reflection. And the reflection depends on the mirror. If the mirror is defective, the reflection is different. Your mind is your mirror. When you say that Patanjali seems to be very great and the teaching very great, you are simply saying that you couldn't understand Heraclitus at all. And if you cannot understand, that simply shows that he is very, very beyond you than Patanjali. He is far beyond than Patanjali. At least you can understand this much, that Patanjali seems to be difficult. Now follow me closely. If something is difficult, you can tackle with. Howsoever difficult, you can tackle. More hard effort is needed, but that can be done. Heraclitus is not easy, he is simply impossible. Patanjali is difficult. Difficult you can understand, you can do something, you can bring your will to it, your effort, your whole energy to it, and you can do something and it can be solved. Difficult can be made easy. More subtle methods can be found. But what you will do with the impossible? It cannot be made easy. But you can deceive yourself. You can say there is nothing in it. It is a cagey teaching. And you are such a grown-up. It is not for you. It is for children. Not for you. This is the trick of the mind, to avoid the impossible, because you know you will not be able to tackle it. So the only easiest course is simply say it is not for me. It is below me. A kindergarten teaching. And you are a grown-up, mature person. You need a university. You don't need a KG school. Patanjali suits you, looks very difficult, can be solved. The impossible cannot be solved. If you want to understand Heraclitus, there is no way except you drop your mind completely. If you want to understand Patanjali, there is a way. Gradually, he gives you steps what to do. But remember, finally, eventually, he will also say to you, drop the mind. What Heraclitus says in the beginning, he will say in the end. But on the path, the whole way, you can be befooled. In the end, he is going to say the same thing. But still he will be understandable because he makes grades. And the jump doesn't look like a jump when you have steps. Just, this is the situation. Heraclitus brings you to an abyss and says, jump. You look down, your mind simply cannot comprehend what he is saying. It looks suicidal. There are no steps. And you ask how, he says there is no how, you simply jump. What is the how? Because there are no steps, so how cannot be explained. You simply jump. And he says, if you are ready, I can push you. But there are no methods. Is there any method to take a jump? Because jump is sudden. Methods exist when a process is gradual. Finding it impossible, you turn about. To console yourself that you are not such a weakling, you say this is for children. It is not difficult enough. It is not for you. Patanjali brings you to the same abyss, but he has made steps. He says one step at a time. It appeals. You can understand. The mathematics is simple. Take one step, then another. There is no jump. But remember, sooner or later he will bring you to the point from where you have to jump. Steps he has created, but they don't lead to the bottom. Just in the middle. And the bottom is so far away, you can exactly say it is a bottomless abyss. So how many steps you make makes no difference. The abyss remains the same. He will lead you 99 steps and you are very happy, as if you have covered the abyss and now the bottom has come nearer. No, the bottom remains as far away as before. These 99 steps are just to befool your mind, just to give you a how, a technique. Then at the 100th step he says, now jump. And the abyss remains the same. They span the same. No difference because the abyss is infinite. God is infinite. How can you meet him gradually? But these 99 steps will befool you. Patanjali is more clever. Heraclitus is innocent. He simply says you, this is the thing. The abyss is here. Jump. He does not persuade you. He does not seduce you. He simply says, this is the fact. If you want to jump, jump. If you don't want to jump, go away. And he knows that to make steps is useless, because finally one has to take the jump. But I think it will be good for you to follow Patanjali. Because by and by he seduces you. One step you can take at least. then the second becomes easier, then the third. And when you have taken 99 steps, to go back will be difficult. Because then it will look absolutely against your ego to go back. Because then the whole world will laugh. And you had become such a great sage and you are coming back to the world. And you were such a Mahayogi, a great yogi. And why you are coming back? Now you are caught. And you cannot go back. Heraclitus is simple, innocent. His teaching is not of a kindergarten school, but he is a child, that's right. Innocent like a child. Wise also like a child. Patanjali is cunning, clever. But Patanjali will suit you because you need somebody who can lead you in a cunning way to a point from where you cannot go back. It becomes simply impossible. Gurdjieff used to say that there are two types of masters. One, innocent, simple. Another, sly, cunning. He himself said, I belong to the second category. Patanjali is the source of all sly masters. They lead you to the rose garden, and then suddenly the abyss. And you are caught in such a grip of your own making that you cannot go back. You meditated. You renounced the world, renounced wife and children. For years you were doing postures, meditating, and you created such an aura around you that people worshipped you. Millions of people looked at you as a god, and now comes the abyss. Now just to save, you have to jump. Just to save your prestige. Where to go? Now you cannot go. Buddha is simple. Patanjali is sly. All science is cunningness. This has to be understood. And I am not saying it in any derogatory sense, remember. I am not condemning. All science is cunningness. It is said that one follower of Lao Tse, an old man, a farmer, was drawing water from a well. And instead of using bullocks or horses, he himself, an old man, and his son, they were working like bullocks and carrying the water out of the well. Perspiring, the old man, breathing hard. It was difficult. A follower of Confucius was passing. He said to this old man that, have you not heard? This is very primitive. Why are you wasting your breath? Now bullocks can be used. Horses can be used. Have you not heard that in the town, in the cities, now nobody is working like this, that you are working? It is very primitive. Science has progressed fast. The old man said, wait and don't talk so loudly. When my son is gone, then I will reply. When the son was gone to do some work, he said, now, you are a dangerous person. If my son ever hears about this, immediately he will say, okay, then I don't want to pull this. I can't do this work of a bullock. A bullock is needed. The disciple of Confucius says, what is wrong in that? The old man said, everything is wrong in it, because it is cunningness. It is deceiving the bullock. It is deceiving the horse. And one thing leads to another. And if this boy, who is young and not wise, if he once knows that you can be cunning with animals, why cannot you be cunning with man? Once he knows that through cunningness you can exploit, then I don't know where he will stop. You please go from here and never come back again to this road. And don't bring such cunning things to this village. We are happy. Lao says against science. He says science is cunningness. It is deceiving nature, exploiting nature, through cunning ways forcing nature. And the more a man becomes scientific, the more cunning. Has to be so. An innocent man cannot be scientific. Difficult. But man has become cunning and clever. And Patanjali, knowing well that to be scientific is a cunningness, also knows that man can only be brought back to nature through a new device, a new cunningness. Yoga is science of the inner being. Because you are not innocent, you have to be brought through a cunning way. If you are innocent, no means are needed, no methods are needed. A simple understanding, a childlike understanding, and you will be transformed. But you are not. That's why you feel that Patanjali seems to be very great. It is because of your head-oriented mind and your cunningness. Second thing to remember, he appears difficult. And you think Heraclitus is simple? He appears difficult, that too becomes an appeal for the ego. The ego always wants to do something which is difficult, because against the difficulty you feel you are someone. If something is very simple, how the ego can feed out of it? People come to me and they say, sometimes you teach that just by sitting and doing nothing, it can happen. How can it be so simple? How can it be so easy? Says Chuang Tzu, easy is right. But these people say, no, how it can be so easy? It must be difficult, very, very difficult, arduous. You want to do difficult things. Because when you are fighting against a difficulty, against the current, you feel you are someone, a conqueror. If something is simple, something is so easy that even a child can do it, then where your ego will stand? You ask for hurdles. You ask for difficulties. And if there are not difficulties, you create so that you can fight, so that you can fly against a strong wind and you can feel that I am someone, a conqueror. But don't be so smart. You know the phrase, smart Alec. You may not know from where it comes. It comes from Alexander. The Alec word comes from Alexander, a short form. Don't be a smart Alexander. Be simple. Don't try to be a conqueror, because that is foolish. Don't try to be a somebody. But Patanjali appealed to the Indian ego very much. So India created the most subtle egoists in the world. You cannot find more subtle egoists anywhere in the world as you can find in India. It is almost impossible to find a simple yogi. Yogi cannot be simple, because he is doing so many asanas, so many mudras, and he is working so hard. How can he be simple? He thinks himself to be at the top, a conqueror. The whole world has to bow down to him. He is the cream, the very salt of life. You go and watch yogis, you will find them very, very refined egos. Their inner shrine is still empty. The divine has not come in. That shrine is still a throne for their own egos. They may have become very subtle. They may have become so subtle that they may appear to be very humble. But in their humbleness also, if you watch, you will find the ego. They are aware that they are humble. That's the difficulty. A really humble person is not aware that he is humble. A really humble person is simply humble, not aware. And a real humble person never claims that I am humble, because all claims are of the ego. Humility cannot be claimed. Humbleness is not a claim. It is a state of being. And all claims fulfill the ego. Why this happened? Why India became a very subtle egoist country? And when there is ego, you become blind. Now ask Indian yogis. They are condemning the whole world. West, they say it is materialist. Only India is spiritual, and the whole world is materialist. As if there is a monopoly. And they are so blind, they cannot see the fact that exactly opposite is the case. The more I have been watching Indian and the Western mind, I feel the Western mind is less materialist than the Indian. The Indian mind is more materialist. It clings to things more. Cannot share. Is miserly. The Western mind can share, is less miserly. Because the West has created so much materialist affluence does not mean that the West is materialist. And because India is poor does not mean that you are a spiritualist. If poverty is spirituality, then impotence will be brahmacharya. No, poverty is not spirituality. Neither affluence is materialism. Materialism doesn't belong to the things, it belongs to the attitude. Neither spirituality belongs to poverty. It belongs to the inner. non-attached, sharing. You cannot find in India anybody sharing anything. Nobody can share. Everybody hoards. And because they are such hoarders, they are poor. Because few people hoard too much, then many people become poor. The West has been sharing. That's why the whole society rises from poverty to affluence. In India, few people become so rich. You cannot find so rich people anywhere else, but few. And the whole society drags itself into poverty. And the gap is vast. You cannot find such a gap anywhere. The gap between a Birla and a beggar is vast. Such a gap cannot exist anywhere, is not in existence anywhere. Rich people are in the West, poor people are in the West, but the gap is not so vast. Here the gap is simply infinite. You cannot imagine such a gap. How it can be fulfilled? It cannot be fulfilled because the people are materialist. Otherwise, how this gap? Why this gap? Can't you share? Impossible. But the ego says that the whole world is materialist. This has come because people were attracted to Patanjali and to people who were giving difficult methods. Nothing is wrong with Patanjali. But Indian ego found a beautiful, subtle outlet to be egoist. The same is happening to you. Patanjali appeals you. He is difficult. Heraclitus is kindergarten. Because he is so simple. Simplicity never appeals the ego. But remember, if simplicity can become an appeal, the path is not long. If difficulty becomes the appeal, then the path is going to be very long. Because from the very beginning, rather than dropping the ego, you have started accumulating it. I am speaking on Patanjali not to make you more egoist. Look and watch. I am always afraid of talking about Patanjali. I am never afraid about talking Heraclitus, Baso, Buddha. I am afraid because of you. Patanjali is beautiful. But you can be attracted for wrong reasons. And this will be a wrong reason if you think he is difficult. And the very difficulty becomes attraction. Somebody asked Edmund Hillary, who conquered the Everest, the highest peak, the only peak which was unconquered. Somebody asked, why? Why you take so trouble? What is the need? And even if you reach to the peak, what you will do? You will have to come back. Said Hillary that it is a challenge to the human ego. An unconquered peak has to be conquered. No other utility. What you will do? What he has done? He went there and put a flag and came back. What nonsense, and many people died in this effort. Almost for 100 years, many groups have been trying. Many died, were lost, fell into the abyss, never came back. But the more it became difficult to reach, the more appeal. Why go to moon? What you will do? Is not earth enough? But no, the human ego cannot tolerate this, that the moon remains unconquered. Man must reach, because it is so difficult. It has to be conquered. You can be attracted for wrong reasons. Now going to moon is not a poetic effort. It is not like small children who raise their hands and try to catch the moon. Since humanity came into existence, every child has longed to reach to the moon. Every child has tried, but the difference must be understood deeply. The effort of a child is beautiful. The moon is so beautiful. It is a poetic effort. To touch it, to reach it. There is no ego. It is a simple attraction, a love affair. Every child falls in that love affair. If you can find a child who is not attracted by the moon, what type of a child is that? Moon creates a subtle poetry, a subtle attraction. One would like to touch it and feel it. One would like to go to the moon, but that is not the reason for the scientist. For the scientist, the moon is there, a challenge. How this moon dares to be there, continuously to be a challenge, and man is here and he cannot reach, he has to reach. You can be attracted for wrong reasons. The fault is not with moon, neither the fault will be with Patanjali. But you should not be attracted for wrong reasons. Patanjali is difficult, the most difficult, because he analyzes the whole path, and each fragment seems to be very difficult, but difficulty should not be the appeal. Remember that. You can walk through Patanjali's door, but you should fall in love. Not with the difficulty, but with the insight. The light that Patanjali throws on the path. You should fall in love with the light, not with the difficulty of the path. That will be a wrong reason. What you have been saying about Heraclitus, Christ and Zen seems like kindergarten teachings compared to Patanjali. And please don't compare. Comparison is also out of the ego. In real existence, things exist without any comparison. A tree which reaches 400 feet into the sky, and a very, very small grass flower are both the same as far as existence is concerned. But you go and you say this is a great tree. And what is this? Just ordinary grass. You bring the comparison in. And wherever comparison comes ugliness. You have destroyed a beautiful phenomena. The tree was great in its treeness, and the grass was great in its grassiness. The tree may have risen 400 feet. Its flowers may flower in the high sky, and the grass is just clinging to the earth. Its flowers will be very, very small. Nobody may be even aware that when they flower and when they fade. But when this grass flowers, the phenomena of flowering is the same. The celebration is the same. And there is not a bit of difference. Remember this, that in existence there is no comparison. Mind brings the comparison. It says you are more beautiful. Can't you simply say you are beautiful? Why bring more?